je vous aimerai. Ma foi, je ne sais pas. Peut-être.
Aries, this is tarot reading for the month of June. Now, after last month, I thought everything was going to go swimmingly for you, but I've got some concerns I've got to say about this month. Overall, the energy is of you putting barriers or self-restricting yourself. Don't know why you're doing it. Don't know. Well, maybe I do. You see, in the past we have fear. So are you putting up these barriers because of fear? I think it's very likely. What are you frightened of? Well, I think like us all, you're frightened of change, but you might have heard me say this before. If you allow that to be fleeting, then we can cope with it. But if you allow it to dominate you, then it will destroy you. And I think we've got an indication of that because of the current energy is the Devil card. And this particular rendering suggests it's very much a devil within rather than an external demon. And that would tie up with this sort of self-restriction. In the future, however, you're going to get hold, and this is the future, so it's after June, you're going to get hold of some practical information, some information that you can actually act on, which I think might be your salvation. Right now, probably because of this devil, the devil within, you're stymied, you have an important decision to make, but you don't feel you can make it, you don't feel you've got all the information. Maybe this is the information that comes in the future, but you're going to have to make it without that. You're going to have to choose, and you don't feel you can. What would change things is you thinking about the future and investing in the future. So focusing on things that will bear fruit in the future, paradoxically, would change everything. Now, this decision that you have to make, I think you do make a decision. You do make a decision. And that decision, what I wonder was the decision between spiritual and material. Because the decision appears to be about materialism. Going off in search of it. And if you look at the rendering, very much opening a door to materialism rather than necessarily getting it on a plate. Very interesting, isn't it, Aries? Let's get into the detail. Now, the energy that dominates this reading is one of you self-restricting yourself, not doing what you ought to be doing. And we know why. It's because of fear. And this rendering is particularly telling. There he is. He's got 8 swords, so he's got all the firepower he needs to take on the world. But he's cowering behind them. He's choosing to use the swords as a defence, but to a certain degree they're also his prison. They're preventing him from doing what he probably needs to be doing. And if only he walked to the side of the swords, he'd probably see that it's a wonderful world full of opportunities. But no, he's fearful. He's fearful. And that's you, Aries. You're fearful. And that's an energy, that fear runs throughout the entire reading. And I need to remember that as I look at the other energies.
Si tu n'aimais pas, si tu n'aimais pas, je t'aimais.
Now, I've said you're fearful, and here it is. Here's the fear. Here's the fear. It's fear of the unknown. And of course, this is a time of massive change. We can all feel that change in the air. And, there's loads of self-help gurus on this platform that will tell you not to fear change but embrace it, and that's what they do, and they're lying. We're all fearful of change, and the trick is to minimise the time that you focus on that fear and maximise the time that you focus on happier things, things that raise your vibrations. So you're fearful of the unknown. It's probably an irrational fear. Probably. I cannot say for sure. But yeah, it's probably an irrational fear. And now we have the energy of the devil. Now, normally I'd say that this was unhealthy attachment, and of course that's exactly what it could be. But this rendering suggests to me something, that this devil, if you like, is not an external demon, but is a demon within. Maybe your Jungian shadow. You know, I've just said you're fearful of the unknown. It's an irrational fear. And to my mind, this is what this devil is. It's this irrational fear that you have within you, Aries. Fearful of what might happen, rather than what necessarily what will happen. But of course that creates the problems. That creates the problems. Last month I highlighted this change, and I also highlighted that there'd be some tests and I felt you'd overcome them. And I also suggested that I thought your trajectory was broadly positive. And what I want to say to you is, however depressing the month of June may sound, I do feel it's a part of these tests. It's a blip. Because after June, you're going to get hold of some practical information, some information that you can act on, that I think will completely change your life, change things for the better. And you're just missing this information at the moment. And, you know, you're fearful because you don't have the information. Is this information also within you? Is it your Jungian shadow? It could be. It could be. But this is definitely practical information coming in the future. Now, what leads to the outcome? And I think the outcome is a neutral outcome, so, you know, it doesn't really matter. But is the fact that you're currently stymied on what you clearly consider is an important decision to make. I think it's a decision between materialism and spirituality, but I might be wrong on that. But that's what it feels like to me. And you can't tell which way to go. Both sides seem equally good or equally bad, and you don't feel you've got the full information. Well, we've just said you're going to get the information later, but during this month of June, I think you do end up taking a decision, be it good or bad. You do take it. Whenever you take a decision, be it good or bad, you must never regret. And I think that's the important lesson.
Quand je vous aimerai, ma foi, je ne sais pas.
To a certain degree, I think you need something to take your mind off things. Take your mind off this fear of change. Take your mind off this decision that you're finding very difficult to make. Take your mind off self-restricting yourself. Do something that's positive. And something that would be for positive would be investing for the future. Now, it doesn't matter what sort of investment it is, but it would give you something to do and give you maybe a degree more hope that you're doing something positive about the future, even though underlying your problems is fear of the future. So you see how I can see that it's very positive. Yeah, I mean, I grow teak in my house in the mountains of Java, and they're worth a fortune, but they take forever to grow. And it's something like that that you need to put some attention into. I think regardless of whether or not you make that investment, you do take the decision, and I believe you take a decision towards materialism, going off in search of material benefits. It's in search of it rather than getting it on a plate, and this rendering is very good at saying that. It's a door opening that facilitates you being able to search for material benefits. But it's not you sort of stumbling across them. I'm sure you will get them, but it's only a door opening. Now I want some clarity on this devil card. Let's get to the bottom of that, because I think that is central to understanding your trajectory, which I'm sure longer term is good. I'm absolutely certain of it, Aries. So yeah, I want clarification on this devil card, and first card of clarity is the strength card. Now this has been coming out to suggest that you're being challenged because you're strong enough to deal with it. And the second card of clarity is the Knight of Wands, brave, bold, but does rush into things, and I think it's the rushing into things that's the issue. And the final card is the Empress. A taste for the better things in life. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Let's look at each individually. So, yeah, we're clarifying the devil card, which I think is internal. It's about your Jungian shadow, as it were. And the first card we get is a strength card. And we've been getting this a lot recently, particularly when we're talking of tests from the universe, God, Allah. And it is that it's the universe telling us that the reason this is happening to us is we're strong enough to get through it. And if we want to learn something, then we need to call on our strength to get through it. So this is a test of you. What's it a test of? Not only are you strong, but you're brave, you're fearless, you're bold. Is that why it's happening? Well, strong, brave, fearless, bold. Distinct possibility that that's all I should read into this. But what I also read into it is that this Knight of Wands is very impulsive, jumps to the wrong, flies into doing the wrong things. I wonder, remember we said you were stymied, you got an important decision, and you chose materialism. I wonder if this is telling us that was the wrong thing. It's entirely possible, isn't it? You see, the other card of clarity we have is the Empress. Very nurturing energy. A mother-like figure. Somebody very in touch with nature. Somebody in touch with her own psychology. Well, we've said that you're probably not, because we've talked about your shadow and that fear. That's interesting, isn't it? But what's the other thing we know about her? She has a love for the better things in life. Now, she isn't greedy, she wants the best for everyone. But I wonder if it's your love of materialism that causes you to choose materialism over spiritualism. And beneath this reading, you're actually being told that you ought to be choosing the spiritual path. I wonder. Aries, I said last month that things were changing for the better for you, but there were some tests. Well, this month does appear to be those tests. The tests, I think, they're interrelated. In fact, they're the same probably. But they're tests related to you. Do you choose the material or the spiritual path? And also your fear of change, which I think stems from an unresolved Jungian shadow that you have. So you're frightened of your own shadow. You're certainly frightened of change, but, to a certain degree we all are. It's dealing with it, making it fleeting that matters. You've been restricting yourself because of this fear, but now you've got an important decision to make. And I think it's between the material and the spiritual. And I'm pretty certain that you choose the material. And a door opens for you, for these material benefits. So, I said that long-term things would work out for you, and I think they do, long-term. But this month you've got to go through it. You do tend to rush into things a bit and get hold of the wrong end of the stick, and maybe that's why this materialism is the wrong thing to be doing. In part, I think it's because you do enjoy life's little luxuries. You're not selfish about it, but you are attached to maybe a somewhat luxurious lifestyle, maybe the fetishes of materialism you're very attached to and can't disengage yourself. One way of doing that would be to think of the future and invest in the future, whatever that might be, whether that be material investment or investing in your own education, or maybe like me, having teak trees in your garden. But it's something like that, something long-term investment that would take your mind off it. And now I've kept saying that, things are going to get better. And as I say, this is a test. This is a test for sure. And in the future, you're going to get hold of some practical information which unlocks everything for you. I suspect it might simply unlock the material path for you, which, you will be quite happy with. But I think there's a steer here that you really ought to be following the spiritual path.